I'm Raquel. This is my channel where I talk about all things health and homeopathy related. I have been asked if I had any insight into the teething tablet recall that happened a couple of years ago. So I thought I would share with you guys some things that I learned when I did the research for myself. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure and click that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this in the future. And you can go ahead and click that alert button so that you get notifications every time that I post, which is usually on Tuesdays. If you like this video, be sure and give it a thumbs up to let me know. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, be sure to put them down below in the comments so that I know and I can work with you on that. And I love hearing from you and hearing about what's going on with you and how you're using homeopathy in your life. Now, I will include references for some of these things that I'm going to say down below so that y'all can get in there and do some sleuthing of your own if you're interested. So a couple of years ago, there was a lot of hype in the media about Hyland's teething tablets causing some seizures, or possibly causing some seizures and maybe even some deaths that might be associated with them. Now, when you take a closer look at the case reports that have actually been presented in the FDA database, it would appear that the FDA issued that warning without really looking into the actual statistical significance of the number of kids reporting seizures versus the number of kids overall who took the tablets. And a lot of the case reports don't include enough information to, some don't even include any information about a homeopathic product having been taken at all, and others don't have enough clinical information to say that there could be any sort of a causal link between the two. So if we look at the rate of seizures that were reported, there were 411 seizures reported over a 14-year period. They weren't all concerning the Hyland's tablets that were currently on the market in 2016. Some were regarding other homeopathic products, and some had no homeopathic products listed at all, as I mentioned before, and some were from a previous formulation that used a belladonna 6X from Hyland's rather than the 12X that was on the market at the time of the recall. Now, when you look at the numbers, the number of those cases versus the number of children total that would have taken the tablets, the rate of seizures were around 1.52 to 2.01%. And that was adjusted for, actually quite generously, for possible cases of underreporting. There's a lot of instances where things just don't get reported. And so when they did these numbers, they actually did adjust very generously for any possible cases of unreported incidents. And that's why there's a range there. And we know that in healthy children, the range of children amongst the normal population as a normal course of their childhood illnesses, between 2 and 5% will experience febrile seizures. That's just a normal part of human physiology. About 2 to 5% of kids who get fevers will experience the seizures. And so when you look at the actual numbers, the rate of seizures of those who took the medication or the homeopathic remedies is actually at the really low end of what is considered normal. As far as the deaths go, while the media reported 11 deaths, there were in fact only 8 recorded in the FDA database. 2 of those reports don't contain any information about a homeopathic product being used at all. A few of the cases had serious pre-existing conditions that could have easily led to their death. And a couple from a febrile seizure, but again, there's nothing to point to the teething tablets causing the seizure. We have to remember that correlation, the fact that they took them at the same time, does not equal causation. and it could have been purely coincidence. Okay, now let's talk about the scopolamine that was found in the teething tablets that the FDA tested, because this is the substance that people are saying must have caused all of these instances. There was 53.4 nanograms, not micrograms, nanograms of scopolamine found in the tablet, and that was the tablet that had the most. This is around 1,000 times less than the amount of scopolamine that is in the FDA-approved drug of the same name, scopolamine, for motion sickness. This means that a 10-pound baby would have had to have consumed around a dozen bottles of the teething remedy, and at one time, because the half-life of the scopolamine is very short, at one time, or very, very short amount of time, 12 bottles, in order to experience the very first symptoms of scopolamine poisoning, which are dry mouth, urinary retention, and blurry vision. So there was an incredibly tiny amount of this scopolamine in there. Not really enough to have caused any symptoms whatsoever, unless there was an incredibly massive overdose that really isn't possible unless a child was like force-fed dozens of bottles of this remedy. Now I can hear what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Raquel. Hang on. I thought homeopathy was energetic medicine, and that these things are diluted so much that there should be zero amount of any substance left in the final remedy. And well, that's true at a certain point, but these were 12x. And we don't reach Avogadro's number, which is the number at which there isn't a single molecule left in a diluted substance, until about 24x. So there is still an actual physical dose of something in anything under a 24x or a 12C? Yes, 12C. So that's why there is actually still a measurable amount of a substance left in the tablet. Let's take a moment and compare these numbers to the number one painkiller in America, the number one recommended for babies and children, and that is Tylenol. Tylenol is responsible for over 100,000 reports of poisoning every year. It is responsible for over 56,000 ER visits every year, 2,600 hospitalizations every year, and 458 deaths every year. Those are deaths by any cause, but up to 150 accidental deaths per year. It's the leading cause of acute liver failure in adults and children in the U.S. And even the FDA says that it has a narrow margin of safety between a helpful dose and a harmful one. Not only can this dose or this medicine be harmful when too much is taken accidentally, but it can also be harmful if the correct dose is taken for too many days in a row. Now and between 2000 and 2009, a 9-year period, there were 20 pediatric deaths from accidental overdoses of Tylenol. Now let's compare this to 411 possible cases, not even well documented or certain to have been caused by a homeopathic medicine. 411 over a 14-year period, and 8 possible, although I think highly unlikely, really completely unlikely deaths from a homeopathic medicine. And which one is the FDA worried about? That's something to think about. One more tidbit to consider before I leave this topic is that from all of the calls to poison control of overdoses of homeopathic remedies of any kind, children who have eaten entire bottles or an unknown part of entire bottles, there have been 0 reported cases of hospitalizations, injuries, or death. Now, wouldn't you think that if a substance taken in its normal capacity could cause these seizures or these deaths under normal circumstances, that if there were cases of overdoses, that at least some of those would have had adverse events reported? But there's not. And I can hear what you're thinking, but Raquel, if these are safe, why were they recalled? And the answer is, well, they weren't. At least not in every other country in the world where they are sold. To this day, under the same formulation with the Belladonna 12X. No other country in the world has had any issues with this remedy. And we all should know by now that America actually has some of the lowest standards in the world for their pharmaceutical drugs and for the range of adverse events that is acceptable. So you would think if this was causing problems in America, it would be causing problems elsewhere too, and we should have heard about it by now. It was recalled here in America back in 2016. It was a voluntary recall that Hyland complied with because they were asked to by the FDA, which is their regulatory body. Homeopathic remedies are regulated by the FDA, and they decided to comply. And my personal opinion is that they probably did that because non-compliance would have meant a very costly legal battle that this small company could not afford, especially when they are compared to the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical conglomerates that would be able to afford a legal battle to keep their medications from being pulled from the shelf. So, I hope this shed a little light on the situation for you, that it brought some new things to mind for you to think about, that it spurs you on to do some research and digging of your own, because please don't take my word for it. Always, for anything that you do, take full responsibility for what you are doing. Do your own research and own your decisions for yourself. If you liked this video, be sure and let me know. Click that like button down below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon.